Hey everyone, Gravity here. Before the video begins, I simply ask that if you enjoy my content to hit that subscribe button below. Nowhere else on YouTube are you going to find a Battlefield player who's played with teams competitively since Battlefield 1942, nearly 18 years ago. Don't forget to subscribe, and please enjoy the video. Over the nearly 20-year history of the Battlefield franchise, there have been several great maps worthy of praise. A few of these go on to become legendary, icons themselves of the Battlefield series, and appear time and time again through game engine upgrades and subsequent iterations. This is not that story. This is the story of the maps that few want to play, and remember only because they were that bad. Maps which should never be remade. This is the story of the worst maps in Battlefield. Now this is an interesting one. Heligoland Bite is what happens when map designers don't know what they actually want a map to do. Let's be honest. A dev said, hey, we have all these naval resources, let's make a naval battle map. And everybody else in the room said, yeah, great idea. And then they forgot what they were doing halfway through. For those of you who have never played Battlefield 1, Heligoland Bite is a large-scale, for some reason, conquest assault naval battle map which features multiple warships and smaller torpedo boats, along with pilotable airships and a few fixed-wing aircraft. Oh, and I guess you could play infantry on the island as well if you like being mad all round long. But here is the thing. There is some Battlefield magic here. You can sense it by just looking at the map layout. You can see it while fighting from the island. You can feel it while playing in any vehicle here. It is the embodiment of the sandbox, and a map of this type is extremely rare in the Battlefield series, and usually carries great risk. Truth be told, a full-scale naval World War I map might actually have been pretty good, and to DICE's credit, the idea wasn't terrible. Ultimately, Heligoland lies here in the bin of worst maps entirely because it was just the execution that was terrible. Taking a look at the overview of the map, one can see that Heligoland is an almost direct attempt to recreate Battlefield 1942's Battle of Midway map. It features land, air, lots of warships, and possesses an island in the center of the map for infantry to fight over. Here's the thing. Midway is sacred. Midway is love. Heligoland is a mess. And quite frankly, I don't think I can properly explain what makes this map a failure without comparing it to Midway, or explain why Midway actually worked. Midway was a Battlefield 1942 map which was also, obviously, a naval map, featuring, get this, 1 aircraft carrier, 1 battleship, 2 destroyers, and 1 submarine per team, all drivable and usable. Like Heligoland, it also featured a center island consisting of 2 flags. But do you notice anything else? Yes, you do. You see those other 2 flags, 1 north and 1 south of the island? That was Midway's secret sauce, the thing that made it work. It was up to the warships to fight over those flags, and to do so they had to move significantly out of range of the center island. With the fog of war, they were too worried about engaging the enemy fleet at these flags than actively shelling the center island. In fact, while naval engagements on Midway may not have been the most frequent of activities, the sheer existence of the water flags kept boats on the move, stopping to shell the island flags only as needed. And yes, while the destroyers and battleship did occasionally shell the island, the main guns were hard as hell to aim, and there was no 3D spotting, so hitting anything had a lot of luck involved. This allowed infantry to play the airfield and coastal defense flags with a freedom some would say is extremely unexpected. This addition of aircraft carriers also made the map work due to their sheer size, the plane spawns, and, well, their sitting duckness. These carriers were drivable and hugely important, and so once again provided a major target to search the waters for, instead of spamming a destroyer's main guns at the island. Naval combat stayed largely naval, and infantry were less likely to be harassed. It may not have been the most fast-paced map, but I'll be damned if it didn't work. Now, with all of that in mind, let us turn back to Heligoland. There are, of course, two gigantic problems with this map. First and foremost is this fracking island. The complete and utter stupidity of this thing's design is just baffling given the map's intent. Here you have a high plateau, and then they said, you can't go up there. You can only walk on the beach around it. Walk on the beach around it from flag to flag, getting killed over and over and over by the dreadnought or the destroyers or the torpedo boat gunners or the planes or even the people in the goddamn blimp.
It's a balloon!
Ah, it's a dirigible!
And even then, if you survive the pounding from all of the vehicles, it's still a fucking beach, and there's only one way to go from flag to flag. You are just going to run into a horde of enemy infantry and get bogged down into a grind. Huge clusters of infantry getting bogged down on the beach around flags on this map are extremely common, and are usually ripe for obliteration from the ships. That is this map's biggest sin. If this ridiculous plateau wasn't here, or you could get on top of it, maybe, just maybe, the space that infantry could have to run around the interior of the island, perhaps through caves, buildings, or hell just natural cover like the terrain on Achibaba, perhaps this map could have provided infantry players with an actual place to play on and not be killed or spotted instantly every respawn. There is just no cover almost anywhere. And the decision here to limit infantry play to a turkey shoot position on a vehicle-heavy map is one of the worst ideas in the history of Battlefield. And before a bunch of Germans and history nerds say, "But gravity, it's realistic. That's a real island." Yes, it's real. I did the research. I know the actual island looks like this. But I don't care. This is a game. Take some liberties, DICE. You always do anyway. This actually could have worked. As a result, unlike other videos in this series, we will not examine most individual flags of Heligoland Bite, because there just isn't a point to do so. The existing flag structure on the map is so bad that all of the flags are equally worthless. Look, here are the flags. They are practically in single file, and the experience on one is the same as on all the rest. There are two exceptions. The first is the C flag, Bunker Beach, which has the only coastal gun battery on the map. This thing kicks ass. Its ability to blow everything out of the water, even destroyers, makes it an amazing flag to hold, especially when you add the 2 AA turrets on the flag as well. The second is the poor dune island where the A flag sits. Completely empty, flat, and nearly without cover short of a single trench and bunker, it is the perfect place to lay back on the beach, relax, and die. It is entirely unremarkable and seems to serve only as bait to draw in planes and ships looking to farm infantry on the island. The second major problem of Heligoland is the vehicles. Both of the vehicles themselves and the amount present on the map with nowhere to go. Each team begins the round with one airship, one dreadnought, 2 planes, yes, that includes the option of medium bombers, and 2 destroyers. Sort of. The second German destroyer actually only spawns on the forward F flag. While each team gets 1 dreadnought to start with, Should it sink early and the tickets be out of one team's favor, that team will have access to another during the round. Being a conquest assault map, there are some slight differences. The British attackers get 6 torpedo boats to begin with, while the defending German side, with its pre-captured flags, get 8 torpedo boats to start with an additional plane from the F flag. However, should these flags be captured, the vehicle spawns can go to either team, and they do frequently. The sheer abundance of torpedo boats on this map should in theory assist to counter the larger destroyers and dreadnoughts. And they do. But here's the thing. Torpedo boats aren't fun to play. Unlike the attack boats of Battlefield 4, they have minimal armor, no countermeasure, lack cover for the crew, and aside from the torpedoes, have minimal firepower. They are jammed in such a small space that they are frequently overwhelmed by the other boats and aircraft. The destroyers the boats are meant to counter obliterate them if they can land a shot, and getting point blank inside gun range, while effective, leaves you vulnerable to small arms fire. Getting up close and personal with the dreadnought means you can slowly cheese it with near impunity, but it isn't fun or satisfying. More often than not, players who take torpedo boats use them entirely as a transport to a new flag, only to abandon them there on the beach, or are so close to the island that seeing enemy infantry running around becomes the ultimate Battlefield version of squirrel. Vehicle combat on Heligoland, unlike any other map in the game, feels like the weirdest glass cannon version of rock paper scissors that you will ever play, and takes some serious brain power to figure out all the variables, because the balance is way out of whack. Anti-tank rifles and handheld rockets do high damage to destroyers, but each destroyer shell only does around 13 damage to another, depending on the distance. K-bullets are enough to stop repairs on vehicles. Torpedo damage is absurd given the number of attack boats. With planes, there are variants that have bombs that will do nothing to warships or airships, but there are a few others that are almost overpowered. It's the Tank Hunter attack plane, by the way. Then there is the MVP of the map, any AA gun, and they are everywhere. Several on the land, 1 on each airship, 1 on each destroyer, and 2 on each dreadnought. And they destroy everything. Planes, airships, infantry, torpedo boats, even other fucking destroyers. And somewhere in all of this, it was decided that the destroyers and the airships should have a dreadnought artillery call-in ability, which does significant damage to anything it hits. Airships on this map remind me more of destroyer play from Battlefield 1942. Slow, but oddly enjoyable. With wonky controls, a player can do well with them, so long as they don't move anywhere near the islands, lest they be shredded by AA guns. A fact that is a slap in the face when you see those bombs you will never get to use. And yet, you can still completely annihilate destroyers and infantry and the def gun, albeit slowly, using that dreadnought call-in. Dreadnoughts, on the other hand, feel like the most useless ship on the map, and short of hunting for infantry kills on the island, are just sitting ducks for that artillery. They can't repair, they move slow, and have a hard time with torpedo boats cheesing them all the goddamn time. They come across as an ineffective mini-boss from a Souls game where you spend 5 minutes dodging all the shells just to feel good for a second or two once you bring it down, only to realize then that you only earned 1 or 2 kills because players in them need only hit their E key and they can be taken back to the spawn menu, no questions asked. Whew. The destroyers, for what they're worth, are not god tier, but they are singularly the most fun you can have on Heligoland. They're fast, wreck torpedo boats and infantry on the island, can deal with aircraft, and even other ships as long as you play it right. The main issue with destroyers is that they are essentially made of paper, taking damage from every little thing, even infantry a mile away. And while it's not the gravest of concerns, it significantly ramps up the frustration factor as each little dink stops any attempt you make to repair, and all the worse when players cannot be on the deck of the ship and repair, as in Battlefield 1942. Overall, each vehicle on the map seems to be powerful in so many ways, and yet they are all a letdown. They seem to die so quickly from everything, and unless you play a safe, conservative, and dare I say unfun way, you and your team just keep cycling through them like popcorn. Now, remember Midway. It is the spacing and free range that naval assets had to make it work. The fleets had places to go from the mainland where naval battles could be more intimate, less distracted, and not about the farm. On Heligoland, the Dune Island flag is the farthest away from the main island that one can get, which means that the fleets have nowhere else to be. Each new destroyer, attack boat, or aircraft simply travels a few hundred meters from the respawn back into the fight. It is an infantry meat grinder and a vehicle grind, and poor map design is fundamentally the reason it isn't enjoyable. Could this be fixed, you ask? Of course it can. Let's let gravity try. I believe all issues on this map can be solved with some flag adjustments and some terrain alteration. Sure, you might not call it Heligoland anymore, but it would be a better map. First, let's focus on the infantry. By taking liberties with the terrain, we would shuffle a few flags and make the plateau part of the combat area. Slopes, caves, and ladders along the cliff walls would allow players to climb up to the new flags up top. The D flag would move inland to the plateau, since the terrain is awful and players get stuck on rocks and hit by newly spawning British assets. The E and F flags would also move up to the plateau, and a small town, coastal fort, and naval observatory would form the new concepts of the moved flags. Modified terrain on the plateau between the flags would make it far more rocky and give it the appearance of a darker, smaller Achi Baba, providing some cover from the vehicle bombardments. Next, the naval assets. By taking the mains flag from its pointless position between the two islands, we could place it way up to the north of Heligoland. With a wide and high capture radius, this flag would be capturable by ships, airships, and even planes. Here, a reward for this flag capture could be another airship, but one without the artillery ability, something to help defend a flag, and yet not be completely broken. This northern flag would entice ships to leave the mainland and fight here, drawing additional assets like other airships, planes, and torpedo boats to come and help, sparing infantry some of the explosive carnage. Additionally, since we are moving the mains flag, it takes away the stepping stone to Dune Island, which itself is already a terrible flag. I would remake this island flag altogether, adding a small airstrip and giving it an additional plane spawn for the controlling team, taking away the bonus from the F flag. This flag radius would be enormous, capturable in the same way as the new mains flag up north. Planes and boats could fight over this flag without needing to step foot on it, and airships could have another flag to fight over while still being in the danger zone of the flak guns at sea. This rework would take a considerable amount of pressure and heat off the infantry on the island and still let the map have its huge, sandbox-style naval battle concurrently. This would get the map about as close to being a parody of Midway as it could possibly be in Battlefield 1. What do I know? Actually, what I do know after playing this map countless times is that this map, even with the imbalance and the infantry slaughter and the weird implementation of full-scale naval combat, there remains something alluring here. Heligoland is not a map that I would normally seek to play, but it definitely scratches an itch. You Battlefield players know exactly what I am talking about. It is an itch of chaos and full-on sandbox, of just shutting your mind down and enjoying the battle and witnessing the spectacle. Few Battlefield maps can achieve this. Heligoland Bite is among them. This, however, does not mean it is a good map. The most depressing thing about it is that it certainly could have been great. But as it stands, based on this video's assessment, no amount of kaboom can salvage it. On Battlefield 1's engine, the ships are gorgeous. The explosions and the atmosphere are beautiful, and the big guns on the ship, it's just so good. And that just makes it even worse, knowing that the map is a disappointment in terms of balancing gameplay. A sandbox, yes. Unique, definitely, but poorly executed. It is the type of map that I really want to love, because it is the closest thing to 1942's Midway that I am ever going to get, and yet another reason to loathe Battlefield 5 for what could have been. There is something special about Heligoland Bite, and it falls into a category of maps that are uniquely Battlefield, but this time it just didn't work out.